everyone. Thanks for joining us for Google NYC's annual TechTalk series. I work for Waze, which is part of Google. And this year, we're excited to tell you how we're making Waze a great experience for as many people as possible. My teammate Eytan is going to talk today a lot about getting us ready to work with Apple's Carplay as part of that effort. So my name is John. I'm John Sharkey, a software engineer and manager here at Google. I work mostly on mobile apps, a lot of iOS, and I'm learning Android stuff now too. At Google, I've worked on Google+, Google Play, and now for Waze. I've also tried some other companies to make sure that Google was the best one. I worked at Facebook, Reddit, and a bunch of mobile game companies before as well. So I'll tell you a bit about Waze. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it or maybe have used Waze before. But I'll tell you a bit about the history of it. It started in 2006. Someone named Ehud Shabtai invented something he called Free Map Israel. He was an Israeli engineer, and he wanted good maps for Israel. And so he made an app. I think it was for his like Palm Pilot or something similar to that at first. I forget exactly what it was, but this is pre-iPhone days, pre-Android as well. So then Waze was founded as a company by Ehud and also Amir Shinar and Uri Levin in 2008. Noam Bardin joined as CEO, and then Waze was acquired by Google in 2013. So after they became a huge hit, and Google thought it was great, and so Google acquired them. Noam, by the way, who was CEO and is still head of Waze, just moved to New York, so we're happy to have the big boss here. And Waze is still headquartered in Tel Aviv, but we have people all over. So what is Waze? Most simply, it's like a GPS-based navigation app for driving. But what makes it different from other apps that let you drive around? It has a reputation for uncannily accurate time estimates when driving. It's really, really good at that. Another thing it does is it's more fun and social than other driving apps. You see icons on the map of other users. You get to report things like accidents and potholes and really feel like you're contributing. In fact, almost all of the data from Waze comes from the community, including the map itself. The way Waze originally worked was the map was defined by where people drive, which meant Waze was very accurate and very up-to-date. So now that Waze is part of Google, it was able to grow in its own way while being part of Google. And I worked for other Google teams, and I work for Waze now. And working for Waze feels like working for a smaller company within Google. We have the freedom to engineer things the way that makes the most sense for us. Our teams are relatively small compared to other Google teams. We get to build the products in the way we want. But then, of course, being part of Google gives us access to lots of great resources, not just data centers, but like people and ideas and talent. And working for all the Google teams I've worked for have been great. And I like that there's a variety of ways to approach things at Google. Waze is still headquartered in Tel Aviv, but we've been growing our engineering presence in New York. I used to be based in California, but the time zone from New York to California was, or sorry, from Tel Aviv to California was very difficult. So we've been growing engineering in New York, and it's been great. Waze is a global business, though. There's employees in Paris, Singapore, Indonesia, Canada, Sao Paulo, lots of other places, too. So here in New York, Waze has about 80 employees, I think, maybe more than that now. We're growing. There's a large presence for marketing, PR, and sales. And of course, there's engineering as well, which I'm part of. There's two main teams here in New York. One of the teams works on ads infrastructure. So the infrastructure that helps advertisers set up campaigns, to serve ads, all that kind of stuff. My team is what we call the platform team. And we work on, so we do all Android and iOS development. And we work on, platform means two big things. We work on SDKs that integrate with partners. For example, Lyft and Spotify have integrations with Waze, and we work on the software that helps that happen. And we also work on in-car platforms. So there's lots of in-car platforms, which means if your car has a screen in the dashboard that runs software, we make Waze work on those things. So there's competing standards. There's Android Auto, there's Smart Display Link, there's WebLink, there's also Apple's Carplay. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is making Waze work on Apple's Carplay. Because we want Waze to work for you no matter what your driving situation is. So we're going to talk about that today. A few housekeeping things. There's Wi-Fi here. It's Google Guest. There's no password, so you can just connect to it. If you need to use the restroom, you go out. I think they're to the left or outside. And if you have any questions, grab anyone wearing a Google shirt or a Waze shirt, and we'll help you out. So here's the agenda. So we're going to have a tech talk followed by a Q&A, and then another reception, and then you'll be done at 8. So I'll introduce my colleague, Eytan. He does a lot of iOS development for us here, and he's been doing most of the Carplay work. And he's going to tell you about Carplay and their unique partnership with Apple to make this happen. It's one of the ways we're bringing Waze to everyone. Eytan is an engineer on the platforms team here, and previously he worked on Search, Google Maps, and Zagat. So here's Eytan.
Thanks, John. I'm excited to have the opportunity today to show you just one of the things we're working on at Waze to make sure that driving is always a safe experience. Many new cars now come with a dashboard display that lets you connect your smartphone and listen to music, podcasts, send messages, and navigate. We made Waze available on Android Auto last year, and we're excited that with the release of iOS 12 this fall, Apple's CarPlay will support third-party navigation apps such as Waze and Google Maps. If you haven't used it before, CarPlay is a safe way to use your iPhone in the car using that built-in car display. It offers access to your iPhone's core features, so you can stay free of distractions while you drive, and it's supported by many different car manufacturers. The way you interact with CarPlay is different depending on the model of the car. Some have rotary knobs that you turn like a dial. Others have touch screens, and some just have buttons to kind of navigate through the various elements on the screen. During Apple's announcement of support for third-party navigation apps at WWDC in June, they actually chose to feature Waze as an example of an app running on CarPlay. And the screenshot that they featured was from a prototype that we built in about a week. The announcement for support for third-party nav apps was really well received, and we saw a ton of posts on social media from excited Wazers already looking to beta test Waze on CarPlay. To have the opportunity to develop that prototype with Apple, a few of us engineers from Waze worked really closely with engineers from Apple on an early version of CarPlay in May. To prevent news of the project from leaking before the announcement, a very small number of people knew about the project, even within Apple. And when we worked at Apple's campus, we actually worked in an almost entirely empty building to make sure it stayed that way. Before I jump into the Carplay framework, I'll give you a brief overview of how the Waze code base is structured, specifically for the iPhone and Android apps. So there's a few major parts. The iOS code, the Android code, and the common code. Common code uses C and C++ to share code between both Android and iOS. And for each platform, we have native code that runs things like UI and other things like that. The common code handles things like complex business logic, logging, configuration, network protocols, and real-time rendering. Pretty much anything you wouldn't want to write more than once, which is great because that ensures that you have consistent behavior across each platform. The best example of our common code being a really big success is the map that we show in Waze. It's built using OpenGL. Since the map is such a complex component, it's always moving and updating, and developing it in common code really saves countless hours of engineering. So on top of all of that common code that's shared between Android and iOS, for each specific OS, we have dedicated code for UI, like I said, and platform-specific code for location, sound, and really anything else that might be specific on Android or iPhone. So there's a lot of pros and cons to having both apps rely on all of this common code. It's great because we can fix a bug in both Android and iPhone with just a single code change. This also means that the behavior between both platforms stays consistent, like I mentioned. And that's really important for testing, as well as making sure that the experience that we provide to our users stays consistent. So whether you're using the app on an Android or an iPhone, you can tap the same button and it'll do the same thing on both phones. Sharing so much code does have a cost, though. In order to work with a common code on each platform, Waze engineers have to be experienced with C, C++, as well as how they interact with the native language, either Objective-C for iPhone or Java for Android. So if you're ever considering sharing code between platforms, definitely take some time to look at the pros and cons to see if it's the right thing to do for your project. Great. So now that we have some background on the Waze code base, I want to show you around the Carplay framework. Carplay provides a fixed set of UI templates that iOS renders from the phone onto the car display. It lets us as app developers decide how to create and configure these templates so we can focus on really delivering a great experience without worrying about testing with every different car display to make sure that it works with a specific resolution or a specific kind of car control. So to develop a navigation app on Carplay, the first thing we have to do is, I'll get a little bit more technical here. So the first thing we have to do is make our app delegate conform to Carplay's app delegate protocol. And once we did that, we're notified anytime a Carplay screen is connected or disconnected from the device. And each of those methods include references to CP interface controller and CP window. And we use both of those to create the Carplay interface for Waze. The interface controller is responsible for managing the templates that we present on the Carplay screen. For example, this is a map template. It has a map. And you can also zoom, pan, and all that kind of stuff. The window is where we draw the map, as well as any UI elements that don't require user interaction. For example, this speed limit sign is actually a subview of CP window. So aside from navigation, Carplay also provides templates for presenting different kinds of information. For example, a grid template to show a limited set of buttons, or a list template to show a longer set of options, such as a list of hazards that you can report with Waze. A couple of other useful templates that Carplay provides are the search template for presenting things like autocomplete and search results, and voice control. Voice control lets us listen for Waze commands like navigate home or report an accident. And this goes a long way to making sure that Carplay really requires a minimal user interaction so that when you're driving, you can keep your eyes on the road and off of the display. So now that we have a map, we can start driving. We'll create a CP trip object, which is Apple's Carplay trip, and set an origin, destination, and a list of possible routes. And then on our map template, we can call start navigation session for trip. And that'll give us a CP navigation session, which we can later use to provide a list of turns, as well as updates to things like the ETA and distance remaining for that trip. So while you're driving, if we ever need to present new information to you, such as a road closure, or traffic ahead, or possibly a reported speed trap, we show a navigation alert through Carplay. This alert also lets you confirm whether or not the report is still active, so you can actually contribute to the community and help other drivers who are driving along the same route. And that's pretty much it. We have a working prototype.
Turn left on 11th Avenue.
So here's a quick demo of Waze on Carplay. And you can see turn-by-turn instructions, traffic and incident alerts, and speed limit indication.
In 1 mile, turn left on Canal Street. Heavy traffic reported ahead.
This was actually earlier. Like, this is a real route. And that's it. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today, and be sure to look out for Waze on Carplay in September. So we have some time now for Q&A. I believe we have microphones in the aisles if you'd like to use those. Thanks.
Hi.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for inviting me and having me, and it's been a great event. I have a question about the common code base, actually. Now that we have Kotlin for developing Android apps, and a bunch of people is working on Kotlin multi-platform, do you guys have any plans to migrate the Android and iOS code base to something that is not that, complex? Because you mentioned that there's pros and cons, right? Like one way to remediate that is basically having one single code base and one programming language, and I think Kotlin is a nice candidate to equalize everything. Thanks.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's no specific plans for Kotlin. There's lots of other solutions. There's ways to run Objective-C on Android phones. There's ways to run Java on iPhones. So it would be technically possible to have a unified code base. The difficulty with Kotlin is, I guess on iPhone, you still have to bridge to either Swift or Objective-C for the iOS UI and the native APIs. And I think the main thing stopping us from doing something like that would be it would require a rewrite of everything, which would be a huge investment. So there's no plans to do that in the near future. And if we did, I think Kotlin would be considered amongst other languages too. Yeah, we'll go back and forth.
Yeah, still about the common code stuff. You mentioned you're using OpenGL, and OpenGL has been deprecated by Apple recently. Do you plan to use something else for do you plan to rewrite your entire map stuff?
So it was deprecated, but they actually didn't give a date for deprecation. So in the short term, the answer is no. But I think the way that we have our OpenGL code structured, swapping out the rendering part using Metal wouldn't be as big of a project as it might sound, because we can still use a lot of the code that we use to calculate and draw all the elements, but Metal would actually be what's drawing those on the screen.
If they deprecate OpenGL, then will there be any common graphics rendering language or API? I guess not.
Not really.
Interesting.
So that was also my question, but I was just going to follow it up with what you just alluded to, which is if you did Metal on iOS, what would you do on Android?
So I think on Android it's still supported, if I'm not mistaken. I mostly do iOS, so I don't know exactly, but I don't think there's any plan to deprecate OpenGL for Android.
Right, I guess if you still wanted to share your rendering pipeline,
right.
Are you aware of anything that you might be able to share across?
It would kind of cause us to fork. We still have some shared code for the map, but a lot of the rendering would be split between platforms.
Cool, thanks.
Hi, I'm a QA, so I'm asking from a QA standpoint. So what are the kind of, how do you actually test all these new features that you guys displayed over here? And is the testing common between both the iOS and the Android apps that you have, version of the apps that you have?
We have a QA team, so we have full-time QA staff who help us test things, and they develop test plans, and they do a lot of the testing, and they've been starting with us so far. We also have a beta community, so we have thousands of people who want to use pre-release versions of Waze, and we send them out to them, which is great because that helps us test many, many times more situations we could test on our own. So a combination of those. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, and while we're developing, we use a simulator, but also actual head units, like for CarPlay, for example. I have a head unit sitting on my desk. Even though I'm not in a car, I can still work as if I was sitting in a car. So I have, a closer connection to the actual experience rather than just doing everything on a simulator.
Okay, and just one follow-up question. So is unit testing the only type of white box testing you guys do, or you do module testing, code coverage testing, statement coverage testing, all those types as developers?
We mostly rely on QA.
Okay.
Because some of the situations are so complicated that writing a unit test wouldn't actually cover every case, but also it's just a matter of cost. It's much faster to run through a regression test that we know exactly how to test than to set up all of the infrastructure for unit testing and to have that run all the time. That's the way that Waze decides to do it. Other Google teams do things very differently. They have unit tests, code coverage, all of that, like you mentioned.
Okay.
It really depends on the project.
Thanks.
Thank you for the talk. Getting back to the common shared code between both iOS and Android, you list both C and C++ as used in that code base. I'm curious, what parts of the system are you choosing to build in straight C and why versus things that are built in C++, as they're often listed together, but definitely different in separate languages?
Sure. So I think a lot of the earlier code that was written back in 2008 was mostly C. And we actually still use a lot of that today, kind of as like the foundational classes for a lot of the stuff that we do. And because of that, it's already there and it works and it has been tested many times. So for those things, they're mostly in C. For a lot of the things like networking and business logic, typically in C++, and definitely the map.
Gotcha. So mostly historical reasons. If you were to build it today, would you make the same decision, or would you build mostly in C++?
It's a hard question.
I would pick C++ over C.
Yeah, I'm
not sure everyone else would agree with me.
Yeah. Personally, I'm also not a huge C fan. I'm pretty comfortable in Objective-C, though. But I think C++ is a pretty good choice for sharing code.
Fair. Thank you.
Hi, thanks for coming. Really appreciate seeing some behind-the-scenes work that you're doing. I have a question. I'm an educator. I'm just curious about your background in terms of how you got involved as application developers and what led you down this path. It seems like you've done a lot already for being fairly young guys. So,
I'm older than I look, 35. But I started when I was a kid with video game programming because I wanted to learn how to make video games. So I learned how to make art and music and code them, and coding is what I was good at. And so I learned a lot about, I learned OpenGL and C++ and things like that. And then I studied computer science. And then I worked in the game industry for a while. And then I realized that working for Google is way better than working in the game industry after a while. And that was my path. But I studied computer science, pretty traditional educational route.
And mine was similar. I started doing summer programs starting in 7th grade, focused on different topics, but programming a Lego robot to find the center of a maze or something like that. And that's really what kind of put me on the path. But same education, computer science degree. I worked at a startup out of college, actually through all of college and then after college as well. And that's kind of where I started learning iOS. They kind of just needed another iOS person, and I was there. So they kind of threw me in and said, here's the code, learn it, and fix all these things.
I should mention that even though we both have computer science degrees, I've worked with great self-taught people and people who did boot camps and other paths too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for coming. I guess I have more of a user-friendly and solution question. So I notice more with Waze, a lot of times it takes you the faster route, but it kind of goes on the side street, around the corner, maybe around another corner to get you back onto the same street. So what kind of tech updates are you guys working on in order to make it more user-friendly?
So you don't want to have the crazy routes, even if it adds a few minutes?
It saves maybe 30 seconds to a minute.
So I don't know if there's specific plans, but I know that there's been talk of letting you choose, like, do you want to have take a couple minutes longer but have fewer turns, and letting the user have more choice over things like that. I can't speak to if and when those features will launch, but I know that there's been talk on those. One example is in Los Angeles, Waze was having people do left turns that they thought were too dangerous. And so now there's actually a toggle if you're driving in LA, like you can say, don't give me any dangerous left turns. And so features like that are coming.
Don't give me, sorry, don't give me dangerous left turns. But as a single driver in a car, you don't always have that flexibility to go into all those preferences. So.
Yeah. So it would be hard. It'd be hard to change those preferences while driving for sure. But yeah, I'll take it as good feedback. I think that Waze should do more stuff like that.
All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thanks for your talk. I'm curious how Waze manages events. So how, for instance, those navigation alerts propagate to the relevant cars, particularly if the data is coming from other cars. How do you validate that?
Do you know about this?
Vaguely. So we receive a ton of alerts reports from users, and I think we kind of aggregate those, and once we are confident enough that the report is valid and actually exists where you say it exists, then we start showing it to other users. And the second part of that is giving you the option to tell us if the report is no longer there. Like if there was an accident, but it cleared up, or if there was a pothole, but now it's fixed. So you can say, yes, it was there, no, it's not there, and that kind of builds into the feedback loop.
And then how it decides what to show you is, it knows what route you're on, so it knows which alerts have been reported on that route. And then the ones it's the most confident in being correct and true, it will show you. And then this is where I hesitated, is then there's an algorithm to decide which ones are important, and I don't really know much about how that works.
Is there ever the case where there's too many alerts and you have to decide?
Yeah, there's more alerts than you want to see, so we choose which ones to show you. Yeah. I just don't know much to be able to tell you how it chooses which those are. But there's a team of people who think about these things.
There's some complicated code to actually cluster alerts. So if a bunch of people report heavy traffic in a very short distance, we kind of bring them all together to one point. And then on the map, we show you a traffic icon with a number of reports. So you don't see a ton of pins for the same thing. Just one example.
Thank you.
Hi. You were mentioning earlier that you use specific type of templates. And so I was wondering from a user experience perspective, how do you guys collect user pain points or come up with ideas to make the experience better?
So for Carplay, it's actually one of the nice things is a lot of the control is delegated to the framework. We can't move a lot of buttons around. It's kept very simple, specifically for that reason. And I think Apple did a lot of research and user studies before deciding to do that.
We also have community teams. You were asking about UX and getting feedback from users or about pain points. We have a community team who manages social media and forums and things, and also an operations team. You can send feedback through the app. If you want to report a bug or have a complaint or tell us we're doing a good job, you can send feedback through the app, and then there's a team that aggregates all of that and then helps the product people and the designers and us engineers know what the problems are.
Okay. So now that you're part of Google, how do you see the roadmap of Waze and Google Map being full? Right now you have two products that are competing with each other, or not, I don't know.
Google Maps and Waze are separate teams. Being separate teams help Waze focus on the things it wants to. For example, Waze is focused just on driving. Google Maps does lots of other things too. It allows Waze to innovate and try new things that a much bigger team like Google Maps, it might be difficult for them to do. So I think, I don't know the answer for long term, but in the near future, Waze is going to stay a separate app so that we can experiment and try things and sort of run separately from Maps.
And do you share the information or knowledge?
There is some information shared. For example, accident reports into Waze, some of that data Google Maps uses. When Waze has launched in new areas and we didn't have good map data to be built up by the community yet, I think we've helped taken data from Google Maps to help build that. So there is collaboration between the teams.
All right, thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about partnerships? So how receptive have manufacturers been with Waze integrating as sort of the native navigation app? Or has the really only progress been with Apple at this point and Android Auto?
No, there's other ones too. There's Smart Display Link, which was built by Ford originally. And I think they open sourced it, or they at least made it available to other people as well. There's a company called Abalta. They make a technology called WebLink. We support that. So generally, people have been very supportive. Everyone wants Waze on their platform. So yeah, so it's been nice to sort of have a lot of support from these companies to get Waze working with them.
There's actually now a Waze-branded car made by Fiat called the Panda. It literally has the Waze logo on the front, and it's called the Fiat Panda.
Okay.
So I think our partnerships team do a great job of reaching out to many different companies and working with all of them.
So is that what you drive?
I think it's only available in Europe, but we want to import one if we can.
If I can get the expense approved, I would buy it.
It's sitting on his desk. So I'm curious about the societal use of all the data you have. You have incredible data of where millions of people worldwide are driving on a regular basis. You know where crashes are on a real-time basis. Have you thought about the different ways that this data can be used? And one example is carpooling. You could, if you know people are driving the same way, you could set up carpools and limit the number of people using the roads. You could flag, and you mentioned the LA example of dangerous left turns. You know where and when there are more crashes. And you could navigate people away from more dangerous intersections at different times. There's all kinds of things you could do with this aggregate data. How much are you thinking about ways that you can use that data?
So I think I talked to you about this before. There's a team at Waze called the Connected Citizens Program, CCP, and they work with city governments and organizations to help use Waze data in aggregate, like anonymized, to help with these sorts of things. Can we detect where dangerous areas are in terms of the number of crashes and navigate away from them? I wouldn't be surprised if we do something like that. I don't know much off the top of my head about what we do with that. And then, what was the other part of your question?
Carpooling.
Oh yeah, carpooling, yes. So we do, have you heard of Waze Carpool? There is a program called Waze Carpool. We actually used to work on it. I used to work on that too, but now I'm on these new projects. But yeah, Waze has a program. It's not in New York yet. It's available in some US states and Israel and more places soon. But yeah, Waze has a carpooling system to help people get to work together. It's different. It's not like Uber or Lyft, which I would consider more like taxi replacements. But this connects, again, Waze is really heavy on community. This connects Waze users who just want to share a ride to work together. And it matches you up. And so there's an app called Waze Carpool you can download, and hopefully in New York soon, but not yet.
Great, thank you.
Can I say that? In 1 week, it'll be here in New York.
So this may already exist or not. Waze is very good about showing you on your route where the cops are in front of you, which I love. Does the feature exist, or is there a plan for the feature to exist where it can show the cops who are advancing from behind?
I like the idea.
I think now there is.
Sorry?
I think now there might be some plan after, you know.
The problem is so the reports we do are for more static, non-moving things like potholes and roadkill and police who are waiting for you on the side of the road. If they're moving, I don't know if a reporting system would work, but it's an interesting idea.
Very cool. Thank you.
How do you and your product team tackle feature creep?
Good question.
We implement all the features.
My strategy, which is what I would tell Katka, is we can't do all of this. Just prioritize them, put them in order, and we'll do what we can. we'll have an estimate to be like, I think it's reasonable for us to get these done in the next few weeks. But the answer is just like pushing back. We can only do so much, so we have to decide what's the most important.
How do you actively reevaluate your app and remove certain features that just aren't panning out? Do you do that often?
That's a good question. Do we ever remove features? I can't think of any specific examples. Okay, yeah. So Carpool, like I mentioned Carpool, which was it's a feature within Waze to share rides. There's a bit of money exchange just to share the cost of gas and wear and tear on the car and things like that. And it used to be that you could set your own price. If you're looking for a ride, you could be like, I want to get a ride from San Francisco to Palo Alto, and I'm willing to spend $12 on it. But we removed that. Now the system tells you what the price is because it just wasn't working when people set their own.
Hi. Could you talk about the process of collaborating with a team based in Tel Aviv and maybe some of the challenges of doing that engineering, and if there are any, I guess, cultural differences with regard to engineering that you've had to bridge?
Sure. I think in terms of like time zone and location, we kind of have to stay organized and know who's doing what, and also if I have a question about something someone else wrote, an easy way for me to find who that is, so I can ask them and learn from them. On the other side, maybe you can give some insight about the culture difference.
Yeah, the culture difference. Well, Waze started as a very small company where everyone was in the same room and working together, which meant less documentation, maybe, than is necessary for like a big global operation. And one of the ways that was described to me is that Israelis are high context communication, is that right? And we are low context communication, which means their emails tend to be very short and just assume that you understand what they're talking about. And Americans apparently tend to write really long, blabby emails that are super long. And so getting just like little communication style differences that took getting used to. But code is code, and people are nice generally everywhere. And so no big issues. For me, the biggest issues are time zone. It's like their weekend is different. They take off Friday, Saturday. And so if they come into work on Sunday morning and they have a question for us, they won't hear about it until their end of day on Monday, and that's like 2 whole days. And so that's the real challenge. And so it takes planning and sort of being willing to be flexible and stuff like that. Another thing we did to help with that is try to have more independent projects where we rely less on them, which is one of the reasons we're owning like these in-car things and also the SDKs for partners sort of helps. But just lots of communication, take advantage of the few hours you overlap for 4 days a week, lots of flights back and forth. To like, I think working face-to-face with people is huge, because if I know someone face-to-face and I've worked with them for a week, then it's just much easier to communicate over email when I get back. So that helps a lot too. But it is challenging. And I think just knowing each other really well and trusting each other and having independent projects helps.
Thanks.
Hey, if you guys had a month where you weren't being told by the product managers what to do, are there any features you'd want to develop?
That's a great question. Any ideas?
I guess I haven't had time to think about these features I want to make.
I would make the mode where Waze makes you go in a straight line and don't take crazy routes. I'd add that.
Hi. I was wondering how you determined reports of an event reflecting the real state of an event, whether that's just a base heuristic or some kind of statistical testing, and curious if that tracks across regions with less user density, if Waze doesn't function as well in like rural Utah or something, as opposed to New York City.
That's a great question. Waze does work better in dense environments for that reason, but it works everywhere. In terms of the actual algorithms to weigh reports and decide which ones are true and when to get rid of them, Goes back to a previous question where I'm not really the expert on that, and I don't actually know. I imagine they use statistics like you mentioned, but sorry, I just actually don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. But I've heard and read that a lot of people are trying different things. So it might be statistics now, but someone might be experimenting with something new in the future. Cool.
Any more questions?
Yeah. So we'll take these last two.
Sorry. Do you have any plan to integrate with autonomous vehicles?
With autonomous vehicles. I know that the people at Waze are certainly talk to people at Waymo. Unfortunately, I don't know what the plans are.
Thank you.
But I'm excited for it. Whatever it ends up being.
Hi, thanks for the talk. It was really interesting. So do you target a lowest common denominator for like frame rate? Is it still 60p? You're trying to do 60p for all cars? How does that work with your testing? And then also, I remember when I had an Android phone, I guess the Pixel was the last phone I had. That was Android. I know it was a really cool feature with Google now, how it would kind of populate cards from Google Maps and Waze, and they would kind of like work in conjunction. Any plans to bring that to iOS?
I'm actually not familiar with that feature.
Sorry, what was the second feature you talked about? Can you say that again?
So 60p, is that still a target for all cars?
So Waze, if you have a reasonably new phone, will render the map at about 60p. And then the frame rate that actually ends up on the unit is sort of dependent on the technology. So CarPlay runs at quite a high frame rate. Android Auto does too. Not all some of them run at a lower frame rate that's still usable. So a lot of it depends on the technology for the unit itself, and less on Waze.
Yeah, most of the car units right now are either at 20 or 30 FPS.
That's it?
There's a few high-end ones, like in Mercedes. I think they run at 60. But those are really nice displays.
Any plans to move some code to Swift?
There's been talk about it, for sure. I don't know if there's any actual plans to do it yet.
No specific plans.
Cool.
And sorry, and there was a second part to the question about cards or something, but...
Oh, just like cards populating in the Google Now app on Android. I remember like I would see Google Maps cards and then like Waze would say, no, you're wrong, or like, check this out too. They would kind of like work kind of hand in hand. I'd kind of get the best of both worlds right in one kind of UI versus going to independent apps.
Specifically with Google Now or with something else?
It wasn't Google Now. It was just really cool. I remember when I had an Android phone, I missed that on an iPhone.
I carry an iPhone most of the time, so I'm not really as familiar with it, but I'll look into that. Sounds cool.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Good luck.
Thanks.
OK. Thank you. And I believe there's dessert outside. Thanks everyone for coming.